Fan Radio Network.
No!
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 34 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to a Tuesday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program. My name is Dan Barreiro. I host the program, and looky here, Guardsy is back, but only for the day. More on that later. And we are going, I believe, the distance today. Is that correct? Till 6:30?
Incorrect. We will be out at 6:15 tonight.
6:15?
Wild Tampa Bay, I believe. At 6:15 pregame puck drops at 6:30.
I should have known that. And fallness will be very, very bitter that I don't, even though I can't tell you when the Wolves play next either, although I think it's against Houston. Is that tomorrow night?
It is gunbelt tight tomorrow night at home.
Tomorrow night, a showdown game against the... didn't the Rockets just lose one that they were supposed to win?
They are reeling right now.
Yeah, they got
the Rockets are reeling.
The word on the street is they have offensive issues, despite the fact they have one of the greatest scorers in the history of the game, the Durantula, Kevin Durant. More on that later. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line will be rebooted shortly. 64686. The uglydeck.com guest lineup has been revised and updated. Chip Scoggins will join in about a half hour. Chipper is scheduled for 3:30 today, and I think the plan is probably to cover a lot of ground, much of it on the college level. There are many stories to get to. Coaching, firings, hirings, Golden Gopher women's basketball. I believe he will be following you to Sacramento, California.
You will be.
To track the Golden Gophers, who take on the UCLA Bruins, who did advance as expected against, was it Oklahoma State?
Yes.
Yesterday?
Yes.
So that game, you tell me, is a 6:30 Central Time start right here on the Fan?
That is the plan.
Good.
That's what Abbott's been working on.
That's
today.
outstanding.
Yeah.
So we'll get into all of that and more with Chipper. It's funny how either great minds run alike, or they feeble minds run together as well between you and me, because you had texted me, I think it was this morning or yesterday, a story that had caught my attention as well, and that I had indeed saved, and it I think ran in late February, but I had not seen it. And it sounds like you either hadn't seen it or maybe you'd been...
I just saw it on social last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is... I think when most people think of gap years, they think of, you decide, you get out of high school, and you've got some flexibility in your life and probably some privilege, and you say, you know what, I guess you could have your freshman year of college and say, I'm going to go to Europe then for a year.
Grab my backpack.
Yeah, just going to get out and see the world, because there's always going to be time for education, but this is the way I would like to do it. And I think that's the concept. I don't know how popular it is, but I think that's what, when people talk about gap years, that's what they are most likely to be thinking of. And we come to find out, or I did, and perhaps you did on the basis of the story, that there's a new form of gap year that is getting far more fashionable and popular by the year. Now, that doesn't mean it's happening everywhere all of the time, but it does have, in this case, very much a toy department bent to it. Here's the headline. Wall Street Journal: why hold your straight-A student back a year? To get a better NIL endorsement deal. More boys repeat 8th grade in a holdback year to grow ahead of recruitment for college NIL packages, potentially worth millions. And they lead with an example of an individual who has gone heavily down this gap year road, a father, a parent. The name is Michael Cancelleri. He's described, not surprisingly, as an entrepreneur in San Clemente, California. And Harriet Ryan, who wrote this piece, notes that Cancelleri has poured tens of thousands of dollars into his son's baseball career, club team fees, tournament travel, and top-of-the-line equipment. But his high school approach, Cancelleri decided that really wasn't far enough. So he paid about $20,000 for his son, a straight A student, to repeat a grade at a private middle school sports academy. Quote, the draw to it was just giving him a little bit of extra time to develop and mature, said Cancelleri, whose 15-year-old son, Carter, has grown, you guessed it, about 3 inches since August and hopes to be a strong competitor next year as a high school freshman. 60 other boys are repeating a grade at the same academy, the Togethership, where coursework includes throwing mechanics, game film review, and nutrition, along with traditional subjects such as algebra and English. Holding back kids in school for an athletic edge has indeed existed for decades on the elite fringe of prep sports, but in recent years, it has exploded in popularity for middle school boys, fueled by the lure of name, image, and likeness money in college. Families are delaying high school so their sons can get bigger, stronger, and more recruitable. The practice is known as reclassing, bridge year, gap year, and it's spreading fast in football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, and other sports where height and strength are key. And not surprisingly, you follow the money, right? And people will follow the money. If there's money to be had, guess what? You're going to have what is now described as a $1 million industry because of the demand. For-profit sports academies, some focusing on a single sport, are popping up from Virginia to San Diego, while private schools, homeschool programs, and even a public school district are adding and aggressively marketing holdback years. Now, this is where it gets interesting to me. So let's say, for example, state of Minnesota.
Yep.
If you want your kid, for whatever reason, to stay in public schools and to redo 8th grade, despite having the grades to advance, is it that simple? Is there a process by which you have to be approved? Private schools can do whatever they want.
That's right.
Right?
Pretty much.
But what are the rules when it pertains to public schools? And I think some states have tried to get in on this to forbid it. Others have, after fighting it early, have given up the ghost and said, fine, everybody into the pool, whatever you want to do. Because my comeback to it was, what about the possibility of a pair of gap years? How far can it go?
Why stop at one?
Why stop at 1 year?
Exactly.
Why not a second gap year? Where do we exactly draw the line on it? I can't say that I'm surprised by any of it, given the amount of money that we're talking about here. And there's a couple places in the story where one of these folks who advises people on these ideas says, hey, look, man, I'm not going to be delusional, or I'm not going to guide parents who aren't being real about this. I think the example was, if the mom and dad are each like 5'4",
right,
I'm not going to pretend that if you wait an extra year, little Johnny's going to grow to 6'3".
He's going to hit the growth spurt.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's limits to within it. But I guess I had no idea that this was gaining popularity, even, like I said, in public schools. And what I want to know again is, so do you just take, my assumption is there still has to be something academically you're doing, but what do you give the kid who successfully passed out of 8th grade in terms of his grades?
Right.
But you're going back to 8th grade again. Are there enough other courses that you just say, well, I'm just going to be more well-rounded? What's wrong with more education? Dan.
Right. I want to take an extra journalism class in 8th grade.
How aware were you of this?
Not at all.
Are you aware of it, how much of it goes on in the great state of Minnesota?
I wasn't aware of it at all, and that's my naivety actually annoys me on it. Because when I hear the term held back or gap year, I think about it like many do, I think, on the front end of your school when you're a summer birthday like I was.
Yeah, there's always been some manipulation there.
Yeah.
Correct? For a lot of reasons.
You don't want to be the youngest in the class.
Yes.
You want to be the oldest
Maturity,
in the class.
the whole bit, yes.
And so as a summer birthday, I guess I had my gap year before I started kindergarten.
Right.
Our school has the gap year, our elementary school, for kindergartners.
Been baked in for a long time.
Forever.
Yes.
So that's why it's stunning to me that there actually is now in the 8th grade side. I had never really heard of it. I'd heard of a redshirt year. I'd heard of somebody reclassifies in high school. They're a junior, but the college coach likes them and wants them.
Right.
So they're going to reclassify. They're going to graduate a year early. Then they're going to come in. They're going to redshirt, and that's going to be their gap year.
Exactly.
I've heard of that.
Definitely.
But I've never heard of this, and I guess I'm foolish because I should have thought of it. And I just love how it's being advertised to parents as what it is. I mean, they're transparent about it. It's an athletic gap year for you to develop again and be older than the rest of your classmates, so you will have an advantage. Here's what it costs, and here's how we do it.
Yeah.
It's extremely transparent, which is also kind of sad.
Where's the interesting quote I had here involving a public school principal? Here we go. In this case, they report about a guy named Trey Brown. I want to start in 9th grade on varsity. Trey Brown told his parents when he was a 7th grade football player, so he asked to repeat a grade. His mother, Adana Brown, a public school assistant superintendent in the Los Angeles area, said that she called it a gamble, but it was one that paid off. Her son grew 8 inches during that extra year, caught the attention of the University of Kansas, where he now has a full scholarship and NIL deal. Boys who are held back, the thinking goes, will hit a growth spurt their second time through 8th grade. Oh, my God. And enter high school bigger, stronger, faster, and more coordinated. Girls who generally mature earlier than boys have less incentive to do holdback years, is the way the experts put it. That only about 2% of high school athletes go on to play at a Division I college at all, let alone sign big NIL deals, has not dissuaded many families. The upsides of holding back are well known in the pressure cooker of club sports, and they are reinforced by social media and successful athletes themselves. I'm hoping we get some text on this. Maybe there's even some parents out there who are participating in one form or another of it. And again, does the Minnesota State High School League weigh in on this? Because I thought I read somewhere in the story that to discourage it, some school systems in some states have reserved the right to take away a year of eligibility in high school of said person who takes an extra year of 8th grade. Now, the question on that would be, what are the legalities there? So if you do that, are you going to be challenged in court by the high-priced Chris Maddle attorney on this for the parents? Because the parents who are involved in this are going to be pretty motivated, right?
Yes. To
get done whatever they want done. So it's all of the details that fascinate me here on whether school systems weigh in, whether state, is this something the Minnesota State High School League has already weighed in on? And then, as I said, I think we certainly have private schools that are wink, wink viewed as recruiters, and there's a much easier ability to put great talent together.
Of course. But
I'm not necessarily familiar of how many of them allow the gap year. Let's say in the academy, because these academies aren't just high school, right? A lot of times they're middle schools as well.
Yeah, because they're repeating 8th grade.
Well, yeah.
That's the whole bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm assuming that there's nothing to prevent them from doing that. Then again, everybody, whether you're from a private school or public school, there are certain eligibility rules that are supposed to be universal, are there not?
We thought so.
I don't know. 64686, Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line. Let's get a pause in now. We'll get to a few texts and prepare. I'm wondering if Chipper has heard about this. He obviously writes a lot about high school stuff and college stuff. We'll probably get into that with Chip when he joins at the bottom of the hour, in addition to a lot of Golden Gopher coaching decisions, hiring, firing, and the Gopher women's surge to the Sweet 16. Stay texts on gap years in middle school. Not just when you're in college, but in middle school. Becoming all the rage or much, much more popular with a huge toy department sports component. A 651 guy writes, high school sports don't matter for college/NIL anymore. Only the elite private club leagues that are protected by birthday classification can't reclassify your birthday. I'm not sure I understand the point that he's making there. Do you, 651 guy? Maybe I'm missing it. The high school sports don't matter, but while you're in high school, if you have extra time in which, at least according to this story, to gain, grow an extra 4 or 5 inches,
right?
That in itself makes it more likely that you can end up with a fat NIL deal, correct? I'm not sure I understand where he's going with that.
Well, if he said, if I heard you correctly, he's talking about birth year stuff for like AAU and club programs. Like a lot of that is not grade as much as it is birth year.
Right.
But
that's not what we're really talking about.
No, it's not. And a lot of people do recruit off of those teams for sure.
Yes.
However, these people aren't doing this for no reason. It's obvious, like the high school component of it is just when they can enter college. Yes. When you graduate high school, enter college. So you might not play your last club year or something like that, but you still have ample amount of time to put enough on tape and enough in-person evaluations that someone's going to give you a scholarship whenever you're done with high school.
My son, like Guardsy, is a summer birthday, youngest in his middle school grade. In track, he'll be competing against boys literally a foot taller and twice his weight. They are shaving, and he is still losing baby teeth.
Sure.
Extremely difficult to maintain a positive attitude for him. Well, is the allegation there that they're even at that level, they're taking gap years? Because you have this has been grandfathered in, as you say, forever about the decision that every parent has to make if your kid's got a late birthday, right? That you want to hold them back because you can, or you can say, go get it, right? Which is what we ended up doing with Gia. We let her go. So I'm not sure if 626 guy is claiming that all around him there are other advantages, because the one that I think seems to be talking about has always been in the system.
Right.
Right?
Yes. I think he's just noting it.
But you can't, again, abuse it, or you can't say, well, I'm going to get to 8th grade and then take an extra year to stay in 8th grade. I'm going to do 8th grade all over again. A couple more texts. Dan, my son played basketball on the EYBL circuit. It's the top youth basketball league in the country. Reclassification is very prevalent among high school athletes. I never agree with the idea, but there's a ton of players that sadly go this route. Dan, 2-time state champions in Minnesota wrestling, has a whole family of gap year kids. The oldest is 20 now. By the way, speaking of that, it's kind of a different subject, but to me it is a little bit related. Are we ever going to get to a point where we don't have to consider the prospect of 30-year-old players still in college participating in college sports? I mean, because I feel like right now it's still Wild Wild West, and you can stay as long as you want.
It seems like it, yeah.
Almost, right? Even that, to me, there's something wrong about that to me. I get it, the COVID period.
Yes.
But it's almost like once that door was opened, we were afraid to close it again. I don't know if there are, again, lawsuit concerns or what. But how often do we get these stories in football and basketball? Yeah, it's his 7th year. He's 26 years old now.
We've gotten him a lot.
Yeah.
We've gotten him a lot. I think it's about to...
Is it about to
filter
expire?
Down? Yeah, because of injuries coming out of COVID, I think. But again, I don't know, because there's also all the lawsuits, and does junior college count, and does Division II count for your clock if you've transferred? They're basically finding loopholes to just keep playing more.
Craig from Boston. Public schools have to pay teachers. Students should have to pay to stay back voluntarily. Interesting.
Which a lot of them are, according to this Wall Street Journal story.
Think about it. JG could have been a 3-time state tennis champion.
How many would the Pioneer Press have recognized?
That's a great point.
Just 2 of the 3?
If you were born now or a lot younger than you are, you might have been able to pull that off.
Maybe.
And ended up with 3, perhaps even 4.
And then where would my life have taken me? Who knows?
Did you have a big growth spurt?
No.
in middle school?
No, I had my growth spurt to 5'9.5" or 5'10".
That was the spurt. Okay.
I think. I don't remember ever sprouting up necessarily.
It's big for national camps, too, writes Ryan in Michigan. By reclassifying, these kids are currently showing out at camps as a 7th grader, and they, in the top cases, are dominating these high-profile camps. Nate writes, this gap year discussion may be the most done-ass segment I've ever heard on this show, and I go back to the list every Friday, to the list when it was every Friday of the program. It's over. Shut her down, Nate. Well, to that point, as I said, I'm wondering if we already have any examples of a pair of gap years yet. Because I have people saying, maybe in general, we should just start kids later in kindergarten than we do now. Maybe we rush them too quickly into the education system at all, and they'd be more mature about everything that they could handle.
Not at the price that daycare's at right now. We need to get them in earlier.
That's true.
Yeah, that will get no support from parents. We need to get them there. Get them to kindergarten.
If you delay it too much, though, then you could end up having, I don't know, like 21-year-olds in high school.
Right. Yes.
Right? I mean, at some point, I'm not sure you want to see
Parker
that.
Foxes.
I mean, 21-year-olds in high school, then you got a whole another set of problems that you don't even want to think about. A big can of worms for sure. Let's get Chip Scoggins' view on this and also get his analysis on the Golden Gopher women's basketball team. A couple of hires, men's hockey, women's hockey for the Gophers as well, and who knows what else. Questions for Chip. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is 64686. Chip Scoggins is indeed back with us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline at 35 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. Dr. Dan's inbox is scheduled to be opened at 5:30, so still time to email the producer of the program who is in charge of which letters run and which don't, JG at KFAN.com. Chipper, you are, my sources say, headed to Sacramento. Is the Star Tribune making you drive, or will you be able to fly there?
I actually got a direct flight.
Nice.
I thought it was going no Greyhound bus here this time. No, I am going. That was a fun atmosphere, Dan, Sunday.
Sure was.
That was incredible. Incredible game, incredible atmosphere. It lived up to the hype.
Is it fair to say, I was attempting to come to the defense of the producer a little bit, who has suggested that for many years that the barn needs to be torched, that he felt like he was on the defensive and people were saying, what do you think of the barn now? And I said, look, I like old things. I like the history that it represents, but let's be clear about something. It wasn't the building that created the atmosphere. There was something urgent taking place. There was something at stake inside the barn that I think would still play pretty well, whether the arena is 400 years old or 4 weeks old.
You're 100% right, because I don't know anybody that just goes to arena to cheer no matter what's happening, right?
Right, yes.
They're not cheering the building. They're not cheering just whatever they see. They haven't had teams to cheer about that loudly and that emotionally and that passionately. It's the product. And yes, when you get them good basketball, that place is going to be loud. And that was, it's interesting, Dan. They had us down on the sideline the old days. They moved us down there. Friday night, we were up top where we normally sit up in the upper deck. They moved us down to where we used to sit. It's funny, Mark Craig, my colleague, and I were joking if we should start screaming at the officials just to honor Sid.
Yes, that was my first thought, too, as you brought it up. just start screaming at them. But it was, I will say, in my 26 years of living in Minnesota, I think that's the loudest I've been in there, but I haven't been in there for many big games, to be honest with you. I mean, I go back to Wayland's years, 04, those teams, it was that way. You have to give them the good basketball before the environment's going to be there. So you're 100% right. Now, they need to modernize it. They need to do some things to make it a little easier on fans. But yes,
in terms of can the barn still be what everybody, the nostalgia that everybody has for it, only if the product's good.
I tried to get Dawn Plitzowite, who was on with us briefly yesterday, to get into this particular subject, and she kind of did, kind of didn't. But you wrote about it a lot off of the come from behind victory over Ole Miss. The decision, and these, of course, were several players who were instrumental to this team's ascension this year and to coming back to win that game with the second straight dominant fourth quarter. What do you know about how challenging it was for Dawn when she got here to keep those players? Because what she said is, well, no, they've all been committed. They've always been committed to Minnesota. And maybe that's true. Maybe it wasn't a difficult recruitment or re-recruitment at all. But what have you heard in that regard? Was it at all more challenging than she was willing to suggest? Because I got to believe, even if you're loyal to the U, no one would blame some of these players to saying, I don't know where this is going. Maybe I should look around a little bit.
Yeah, and I haven't talked to them specifically. I went back into our archives a couple days ago just to look, and I think there was like I want to say 5-day lag time, Dan, between when Lindsay left, maybe longer, or or after Plitzwhite got hired. That at first it was Mara, and then someone else with her, and I think Battle took a few more days.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, I don't think we heard right away, no matter what happens, who they hire, we're staying.
Yeah.
They didn't come out but that's probably natural, right? You want to get through your emotions of losing your coach and figuring out, okay, is this still what I want to do? Who are they going to hire? I wouldn't be surprised if schools called them and reached out to say, hey, what are you thinking? Because I think that's pretty standard when you have a coaching change. Other schools, if they're interested in it, are going to call and kind of gauge your interest. So I don't know if all that, how much that played into it, but I do know that school and that program and the commitment they made to each other meant a lot. And we've heard that a lot from Battle and Braun here specifically over the last couple of days. Just they wanted to see this through. They came here because they wanted to make the program good again, and they loved playing with each other. They really have this kind of connection in terms of just enjoying being around each other. So I think it would probably take something really extraordinary for them to leave beyond just the coaching change. But it is, I think, just such a nice reward in this day and age of college sports where kids just leave for whatever reason, that they stuck it out, went through injuries, went through some tough times. I think Don's first year, didn't they win, Guards That Can Help Me, didn't they win just like 5 Big Ten games? I mean, they took their lumps.
Yeah, they did.
And then to have that moment on Sunday where they all were impactful and they all made these huge, significant plays in the final minute. I mean, you can't write that script any better.
No, for sure. And again, as you well know, they were struggling going into the fourth quarter, the previous game against Green Bay, right? I mean, they completely took over in the fourth in that game, gave up 9 in that one, gave up 9. I think combined, they outscored the opposition 49-18 in the 2 games. But it was, it looked like it was even going to be made perhaps more of a slog because Ole Miss clearly is a more talented team and a better team as well. But as you say, when you're trying to build it, it's got to be pressurized because you get the advantage of playing 2 games at home. You're supposed to win them as a result of it, but you got to do it. And to that extent, what I think has to be helpful to the program is they maximized the opportunity, right? You can't really ask for much more than winning 2 and then winning, especially in the second round game, the way they did in dramatic fashion in front of the most boisterous and biggest crowd probably they've had in forever, going maybe even back to the Lindsey Whalen days. That's how you give yourself a chance to feel like there's something credible building, and one would hope then you have a chance to sustain it.
Well, that's it. I go back to Friday. Dan, I thought the first half, nerves got to them.
Yeah.
This is their first time in the tournament in 8 years and biggest crowd. And so I felt like they played a little uptight, a little tense in the first half, and then they're better in the third, fourth. They just obviously dominated. But Sunday, Ole Miss, like being courtside, you could tell they were incredibly athletic and incredibly physical. and they played up in them defensively. I mean, they were, knocking them off on screens, all that. I mean, they're a good team. So to have to fight through that and overcome, I think they're down 8 going to the 4th. That was a real test of their resolve and just I think a lot of their toughness, and they rose to the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what you wanted to see. This program is building, and they had a good regular season. All the things that they did to get that top seed. And when you get a home court advantage, you don't want to squander it, because that would have, talk about the heartbreak if that last shot would have gone in or if they had lost that game. But the way they did it, to have to fight back and really win a game that was just super intense and super physical, I think that's probably why the reaction and why there was so much elation inside Williams Arena, just the way it unfolded. And then to see these players that fans have followed their career for 4 years and really got to know them well and really embrace them, to see them make those high-level plays. I mean, that shot that Braun made, the step-back three, I mean, that's incredible.
That was huge.
Amaya Battle, who is as good as person as you're going to meet, Amaya Battle, to make that, fall-away jumper to win it. I just think if you're a casual fan or you're checking them out for the first time, I think you walked away really impressed and probably saying, you know what, I want to watch them more. And I'm guessing they'll get a spike or a surge in attendance next year because of what they're doing this year. The
game you are going to cover is Friday in Sacramento, 6:30 on the Fan against UCLA. The most recent point spread I've seen is UCLA is favored by 19.5 points. I'm assuming it's not all that different for Carolina, what they have ahead, UConn, etc. The question on the table is, does women's college basketball still have a real problem when you get to the Sweet 16 and the point spread between two Big Ten teams is 19.5 points, granting that the University of Minnesota program is just emerging. But I don't think that's a good look.
Well, I think they don't have and I don't know that the men's game, we can talk about the parity there and whether NIL's having the effect that we all thought it would. It's not. The Cinderella, that's been a national storyline. They don't have that now. Is it becoming better? Yes, but you still look at UConn, the South Carolina years, this UCLA team. I think most people say UCLA UConn is going to be your national title game, and I'll be a little bit surprised if it's not, because they're just that good. So there's still a pretty big gap, I think, between the top programs and even the higher tier programs that are in the Big Ten or SEC or wherever. So I don't know how you solve that. NIL, we thought that was going to be a kind of an equalizer in college sports. I think it has to some degree in football. Basketball, it really hasn't the way we thought, at least based on March Madness results. And so, but no, this UCLA team is dynamite. Obviously they're going to have a top 5 pick with bats in the WNBA, and they're just big and athletic and really skilled. So, Gophers will have to, it's going to be a monumental effort to get past them. But yeah, there's still a hierarchy in women's college basketball that these other teams haven't been able to crack yet.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the hierarchy on the women's side is even between teams in the same super conferences. That's to me what's different than the mid-major stuff when we're talking about the men's sports or the men's side of college basketball. It doesn't appear that the Golden Gopher men's hockey Subway alumni are overjoyed with the announcement that Brett Larson is going to replace Motzko as head coach. Are you as underwhelmed as they seem to be, or do they live in some sort of a dream world at this point?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that, like, is Scotty Bowman not available type thing? Can he?
I'd hire Lemaire. I'd go with Jacques Lemaire myself. That's just me.
Jacques.
Yeah.
There is still a little bit of that. I remember not years ago, and when was it, Guards, help me, in Philadelphia when they lost in the national title game to Union.
Like 20.
Remember Union had that, like, the 25-year-old, they're all 24 and 25-year-old guys. And
yeah.
I remember talking to a Gopher official, and I said, well, tough team. And this person said, kind of bleeped that word Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I sort of still think there's that kind of attitude that we still think it's the Minnesota hockey. And it is, but college hockey has changed. More good programs, more people are investing in it, more people are doing the junior route, transfer portal. I mean, look what Penn State is doing, the amount of money that they're pouring into their hockey program right now. And so I think the landscape has changed. It still should be a premier program because you're in the state of hockey and you have the facilities and all that. But I think there's, within their fan base, there's an expectation that you're going to get the very best, whoever you want, name your price, we're going to go get you. I think there's that attitude. I don't know a lot about Brett Larson. I saw Brock Faber, Russo tweeted out a pretty glowing quote from him. I'll take Brock Faber's opinion on it. So, I mean, I know it's a hard place to win at St. Cloud State, and he was, his resume was better early than it has been late, but I know you talk about programs that don't have a lot of resources there to win there. So I think you probably have to give the guy more than 15 minutes chance to prove that he can do it right. So, I do think from what I could gather talking to people, there was still a lot of interest within the coaching community for this job because it is still Minnesota. It's still a premier job. But I think there's just these expectations with their fan base that you're going to be able to get whoever you want.
If the stories are true, I think what's been written a number of places is that Augustana guy, that we had interest in him, but he had no interest in coming here. If that has been reported accurately, is that a concern?
It stops you in your tracks a little bit because you're thinking you're getting turned down for a guy to stay at Augustana, but without knowing him, without knowing his family situation, did he grow up there? Did kids go to school? I don't know his whole background and situation there, but if it's just, I think I have a better situation here than I do there, I would say that's a problem. That's not a good look. So, but you have to dig deeper into it and find out what his circumstances were, and why he elected to do that. So I think early on, right after Bob was, they had the, whatever you call it, parting of ways, I think a lot of outlets, a lot of reporters were identifying him as kind of the lead guy. Everybody thought it was going to be a slam dunk. And so I think that's why it's so jarring when his AD tweeted, he's staying here for a long time. So if that's the case, if he just felt like that's a better place to win than here, then you probably need to do some self-inspection. If you're Mark Cole, and find out, are you given enough resources, NIL, institutional support, all those things? And I know Mark has really tried to pour a lot of money into basketball because they need to get those two programs in a better spot. So I don't know if you're taking away something from hockey, or is there just not enough for hockey to give? That's something they have to really analyze internally, though.
Is it fair to start calling, as I have, Mark Coyle the smiling assassin? I mean, he's fired a lot of coaches, and there's people who you go all the way back to the Whalen decision. However that was presented at the time, it was pretty much clear that that he wanted to make a change. You could make the argument then some people did. It doesn't look great, but give her one more year with the people she has. The same argument was made with Ben Johnson, right, to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And there were certainly people making it about Motzko and Brad Frost. So what is the approach on these sports that the AD has taken? What does that tell us about his approach, I guess, his style, even though we, of course, rarely hear from him directly or publicly?
Yeah, and he clearly is not a guy who likes to be out there much, and he wants to be behind the scenes. But if you talk to people, he's very convicted behind the scenes that if he doesn't think something's going right, he's going to make a change. And we've seen that. I mean, this is year 10, and he's made, if an AD's any place for 10 years, there's going to be a number of coaching changes. But I think, and I remember talking to him one time after the Tracy Claeys firing. And there was other things, obviously, we know about the investigation, but he looked out at TCF Bank Stadium on a Saturday multiple Saturdays and saw that thing half empty, and it really bothered him. I think he did the same thing with Ben Johnson. He saw their attendance and how low it was, and just how the fan base had really kind of lost confidence in the basketball program. And I think what we're seeing with Mark is he would rather make a decision today than put it off and hope it gets better if there's not evidence that it's going to turn around. And so you don't want to take your cues from how many people are in the stands, but if you're around your programs and you're around the teams, you get a sense of how your fan base feels about their confidence level, their enthusiasm, whether it's donations, whether it's going to games. You get a sense that people believe in what you're doing. And if they don't, if your fans have lost belief, I think that's when he gets a sense, I need to make a change here and try to figure something else out. And I think, we don't see him give a lot of public talks and everything, but I think he has a pretty good sense of what each program, where they're at and where it's going. And so if he feels like he's going to make a decision, he's got to make a coaching change 12 months from now, I think he's looking at it like, let's just make it now.
As an individual who writes a lot on high school sports and certainly college sports, long even before you were writing columns, and you've continued, I think, to try to make those your emphases at times as well, how much awareness did you have over what Guardsy and I discussed early in the show, that there is now a growing phenomenon, sports-related again, of athletes or would-be athletes retaking, for example, 8th grade to give their bodies a greater chance to mature and to get ahead of the sports masses. Did you know about this phenomenon?
I heard you in the first segment. I did not know about it. The only reclassification I was aware of is like what Cooper Flagg did.
Yes.
Right, so we could get to college a year earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I had not heard that, but when you were talking about it, I'll sit here and say I wasn't surprised. If anybody has spent any time around youth sports, travel sports, high school sports, the level of commitment, money, parent involvement, pressure. I went to the high school, the boys hockey tournament a couple weeks ago, and I was talking with some fans, some parents, Dan, and they told me that they spend between $20,000 and $25,000 per year per kid on youth hockey. I don't know who has that kind of money. I don't have that kind of money, but that's just, and it sounds like that's pretty typical between training, equipment, travel, all the things that they put into it. And so, and now you put in how these kids in college are making $100,000. Some of them are making $1 million through NIL and rev share. You think that's not going to trickle down and create, hey, my kid can get wealthy in college by being a college athlete. That's why you're seeing parents get coaches ousted from programs.
Yes.
That's why you see transfers. That's why you see all the things that we're seeing at the high school level. It's because there's just this, I've got to keep up. Whether to get a scholarship or whether just to make the varsity team, I got to do these things because everybody else is, and I don't want to get left behind. So it doesn't surprise me. That's just kind of a tentacle to this arms race.
I think, as you lay it out, it shouldn't shock anybody. But I will do a back in my day enough or get off my lawn to say you can do it however you want, and maybe this is the way it has to go. But it has nothing to do with certainly the scholastic sports that I remember growing up watching, for example, in Gary, Indiana, especially the basketball. Nothing to do with any of this. And I feel sad about that. I understand why we're where we are, and I'm not here lecturing because, as you say, there's probably too much money involved. But I think all of it, holding people back, extra years, having kids in college play 7 years, whatever, all of it does come at a price that I think we're all the worse for what it has taken away from what I think most of us remember about certainly high school sports and maybe even college sports to a degree.
Well, it is. I mean, it's guys of our age, we just remember it a certain way. And you can have these conversations with people and we can complain about, man, why are we doing this? And then you turn around and say, well, what's your kid doing? What's they're doing?
Right.
You're getting this training? Well, we better get that training too.
That's true.
So it's like, it really is, Dan, just because we all want best for our kids, right? We want our kids to have the best chance. We want to be able to be on the varsity, have a playing time, not even college scholarship. I'm just saying have the experience. That you see what everybody's doing, and it's just a giant game of I got to keep pace. My kid has to keep pace because everyone else is doing it, and you don't want to get left behind. Is it unhealthy? Probably in a lot of cases, but this is where it's at, and parents are just spending the money, and the kids want to do it. And it's not to say that they're being forced to do it. Kids want to have this. They want to have this experience. It's kind of the expectation, but is it out of control? It probably depends on your perspective of what out of control means.
Let's finish up with a chance to review just a little bit about the reaction you have received to a story that I think dropped at StarTribune.com. I think it was March 1st, actually. And it's a subject that we had discussed on this program, Guardsy and me, with a national guest. It was from ESPN, right, Guardsy?
Dan Wetzel.
Yeah, Wetzel,
exactly.
Dan Wetzel, yeah.
And you found a localizing of that national tragedy having to do with sextortion cases, in this case centering around a family out of Olivia, Minnesota. Remind folks what was in that story, how they can get it, and for me, most importantly, what kind of reaction you've received since it dropped at the beginning of March.
Yeah, and Dan Wetzel did the first story, and he mentioned in that story that there was a kid named Carter Brimseth from Olivia who had taken his life over sextortion.
Without any details.
So I contacted his parents. Yeah, so I contacted Carter's parents and sat down with them a number of times, and they wanted to really get his story out because they've become passionate advocates for parents to understand what sextortion is. I think probably a lot of your listeners have heard about it by now. I won't go into great detail about that, but Carter was a 16-year-old kid who, took his life after being sextorted by somebody in Nigeria. Sent him a photo of a nude picture of himself, and it was blackmailed for money. They were going to threaten to send it to everybody in his family and friends and all that. It's a very serious and scary topic. It's happening a lot more than people know. Hopefully that story, the Brimseth family wants people to read it. You can read it at StarTribune.com. More than anything, they want parents to be able to talk to the kids, and it's uncomfortable, right? I can't imagine 13-year-old me telling my mom and dad I sent a nude photo to someone. I can't. But if it happens, just let them know you're not in trouble, and you can come to your parents. You can talk to them. Parents, that's probably the message you should tell them. You're not in trouble. We're here to help you. So I hope people really investigate it, Google the story, come to it, and find it and read it, because the BCA agent special in charge who I worked with on the story, she called it a pandemic, Dan, and it's happening to hundreds, if not thousands, of kids in this state and across the country with regularity. And the more awareness there is, I think, is the more opportunities parents can to help their kids. So if they get in that situation, they'll know what to do.
And as you well know, the key to that story was the cooperation of the family. And that's, to me, it is, you want to talk about stuff that can't be easy? That can't be easy, to relive that in as public a way as you're going to give you the access, the excellent access that you got. And so I've said this before, I think when the story, when the story first appeared, I just have so much respect for the family's willingness to go public about something that had to be just devastating to have to relive. It's so understandable that people want to go private, right? And go, I'm done. I can't go back down this road. They chose to be more selfless about it for the reasons that you laid out, to see if at the very least there could be positive impact that helps not just kids, as you say, but parents, probably most importantly, and how to process this thing. So I just speak so highly of their willingness to give you the access that you received.
Yeah, and I've been flooded. You talked about the feedback. I've been flooded with emails from parents saying, thank you for doing this. I wasn't aware of it. I had never heard this term. I'm going to talk to my kid about it. And that's what they wanted. And I'll share with you, you talked about my story on your Sunday show when it came out. And Carter's dad, Dan, his parents are Jamie and Dan, who I have just so much respect for their courage to share his story. But Dan was listening to that. And that meant so much to him. Sorry, I get a little choked up here. That you talked about on your show, because they want people to know about Carter, the person, but they want people to know about what sextortion is. And email me, and I shared it with you privately, that it meant so much to them that you would talk about their son on your show. And that's what it's about, is raising that awareness. And they're just great people, and it's, so heartbreaking what they've gone through, and to have the strength to be able to sit down with me a number of times and just articulate how they're feeling and what their kid was like and what he went through. I can't even imagine the courage that took. So I'm forever indebted to them, and still talk to them. And I think we're going to have dinner here soon. We still keep in touch. But the response, parents are finding out about it and learning about it. And I hope, people listening today, if they haven't, to go find a story and read it and learn about it.
Yeah, it was such a well-told story, and difficult story to do, but very well told. And as you say, the key to it is probably getting past the front-end understandable stigma. You go, oh my God, what are people going to think about me as a parent, that my kid would send a photo like this? And that's what you have to get past, right? You have to get past however you feel about that, because if you don't, it encourages other children to think, I'll never get out of this morass. And that sometimes has led to the worst end, which is taking one's own life. And to me, that's the story. The notion that, hey, this might not be fun for a while, but there will be, you will get to the other side of this, and we will be there with you to get you there.
Kids make mistakes. And everybody I talk to, the experts, saying, even if you do something that you regret or that embarrasses, you're not the problem. The person that's doing this to you, they're in the wrong. They're the criminal. You didn't do anything wrong. You made a mistake. But just know that you're not alone, and you can tell your parents, and that's where the parents, you don't want to shame the kids. It's not about shaming, as the BCA agent said, stop shaming the kiddos. They didn't do anything wrong. It's the people that are doing this, they're doing the wrong. So having that conversation with them that, hey, if you do something that you regret, we can figure anything out. We can solve anything. Just come to us and we'll help you.
Thank you for the time. Safe travels to Sacramento, because it does occur to me that I kidded you about whether you're going to have to take the hound out there, take the bus or drive. But you know what you could have done? And I think he would have been agreeable to it because he loves to travel by car. I think you might be able to convince Mace to drive you out there, and you can have a nice bonding cross-country experience. See the country the way our guy, Glenn Mason, now does on a regular basis.
Are you nuts?
Well, yeah, probably nuts. Yeah. Then again,
I don't think
maybe not such a great idea after all. I come to think of it.
Nuts?
Yeah,
I would do it with Mace.
Well, you guys have buried the hatchet, just like we have to a certain extent, but you know how that is. When you're in close proximity to him, sometimes he still wants to bury the hatchet in our heads for stuff that he thinks we wrote.
I'm sure he would complain about my driving or try to talk me into writing a book.
Yes,
or both.
That's ongoing, no question.
You could do the book in the passenger seat.
There you go.
You just get it done.
Do the audio. Yeah, just start running tapes.
Mace. You're done.
And then you got tapes, get them transcribed, and you're halfway there.
Don't put the thought in his head. He'll have me driving. He'll be passenger seat with me. I can see him now. I'm gonna get it this way. He's going to call me probably in a half hour.
No doubt.
Man, I just heard this idea. Let's do it.
Well, I think his dream is that you, me, and Royce are tribe byline people that we all combine to write. He thinks his career is worthy of at least 3 writers, maybe more.
Probably a part two, right?
And part 2.
He'll want a second book too.
Yeah, the only chapter I would like to write is the Joel Maturi chapter. That with Mace I would enjoy. I have to admit that in of itself might be worth all the other nonsense. The Mother Maturi chapter as told by Glenn Mason.
You could do that one, and Royce could do the chapter about when he gave him the Turkey of the Year.
That's true. There you go. Thanks, man.
All right, we'll see you.
Always a pleasure. Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune, and StarTribune.com.